In the year 1483, England was under the rule of Richard III. He had come to power during one of the most turbulent periods in English history, the Wars of the Roses. Richard was the younger brother of Edward IV, and after Edward's death, Richard took the crown from his young nephew Edward V, claiming that the boy's birth was illegitimate. The princes Edward V and his brother Richard disappeared soon after, most likely murdered, and suspicion quickly fell on Richard. From the beginning, his rule was clouded with controversy. Although he was an able administrator and made some legal reforms, Richard III never gained the trust of many nobles or the wider public. Discontent grew, and support began to gather behind a distant Lancastrian claimant to the throne, Henry Tudor. Henry had spent much of his life in exile in Brittany and France, but with Richard's support weakening, he saw an opportunity to claim the English crown. In August 1485, Henry Tudor landed in Wales with a modest army of around 2,000 men. He was joined by Welsh supporters and a few discontented English nobles, including some with connections to powerful families who had suffered under Yorkist rule. Richard III, meanwhile, had received word of Henry's landing and quickly mobilized his army. He chose to make a stand near the town of Bosworth in Leicestershire. The terrain was open and suited to battle, and Richard was confident. He had the larger army, estimated at around 10,000 to 12,000 men, while Henry's forces were perhaps only around 5,000 strong, but numbers alone wouldn't determine the outcome. The two armies met on the morning of August 22, 1485. Richard's forces were arranged in 3 traditional divisions or battles. He commanded the central group himself, with John Howard, Duke of Norfolk on one flank, and Henry Percy, Earl of Northumberland, on the other. Henry Tudor's army was also divided, with his main force under John de Vere, Earl of Oxford, a veteran commander. As the battle began, Oxford's men clashed fiercely with Norfolk's. The fighting was intense, but as the tide turned in Oxford's favor, Richard was faced with a critical moment. He had hoped that Northumberland would commit his troops fully, but Northumberland held back, either out of caution or as some suspect, from a lack of loyalty to Richard. Meanwhile, one of the key figures watching from the sidelines was Thomas, Lord Stanley, and his brother, Sir William Stanley. Though nominally loyal to Richard, they had strong family ties to Henry Tudor. Thomas Stanley was Henry's stepfather. They had brought a sizable force to the field, but had refused to commit at the start of the battle. Richard had even taken Thomas Stanley's son hostage to ensure loyalty, but this proved ineffective. With the battle turning against him, Richard made a bold and fateful decision. He spotted Henry Tudor on the field, surrounded by only a small personal guard. In a desperate bid to end the battle in a single blow, Richard led a direct cavalry charge toward Henry himself. It was a daring move and nearly succeeded. He killed Henry's standard-bearer and came close to reaching his rival, but the Stanleys finally intervened. Seeing their chance, Sir William Stanley's forces joined the fight on Henry's side. They overwhelmed Richard's party and surrounded the king. Richard III was killed in the fighting, refusing to flee. According to some later accounts, he cried out "Treason! Treason!" as he was betrayed on the field. His death marked the end of the Plantagenet dynasty and the last time an English king would die in battle. After the dust settled, Henry Tudor was proclaimed king as Henry VII. He married Elizabeth of York, uniting the warring houses of Lancaster and York and founding the Tudor dynasty. His reign would bring an end to decades of civil strife and mark the beginning of a new chapter in English history.